going on YouTube? Mr. Football here, and today I wanted to talk about what to expect in your first year as an assistant football coach. So we're going to assume that you've just taken a job as an assistant football coach. Maybe you're at the, at the varsity level, the junior varsity level, however you want to define it. But we're going to talk about your first year and what to expect as an assistant football coach. So we've all been there, and especially if you're an older head coach right now, or if you've been coaching a while, you'll kind of, get the sense that, everybody kind of goes through the stage, but we're really focused on the guys that are first getting into it. It's year zero. You don't have any experience. Bless your heart. We're going to help you out. This is where we're going to talk about what you can really expect going into that first job. And we're going to talk about being an assistant football coach and what all that job description consists of. It's different at every school. You may have more jobs than most people because as the head coach, if you're the head coach, you basically get to deal out all of those responsibilities. And to be honest, head coaches are going to deal out more to the young guy. That's just what happens. I've been there. Okay, back when I first started. If you've heard me speak before, I first started out, my very first year of coaching, I wasn't paid to be, on the football staff. I was a volunteer. And so that was it was back before volunteer coaching was kind of regulated. It's different from state to state. Like Arkansas is different, but now you actually have to have a background check. But I was also background checked, and I was also a school employee. So I was kind of helping out, and basically I was just a fourth coach, but really my first year I wasn't really involved. I was just like having to volunteer to film and I also helped paint, and I didn't have anything else to do either. So like we'd be out there like painting the game field, and I'd be out there to help. And I think it helped them, just because we just had 3 coaches on staff that first year. Well, I hang around enough, even in spring ball. And I that very next year, my second year, I was hired on as full-time assistant coach, and so there was our head coach, 2 assistants, including myself, and so us 3 we took on the next year. My first what I did in my first year was I was the receivers coach, and I was the defensive line coach, and so we had a change. And the receivers coach of the previous year, he went to coach offensive line and linebackers, and then I had the D line and receivers. And our head coach, he was the quarterback, running back coach, along with the defensive back. So we had all the positions, the main positions covered. And so we go into the year, and coaching receivers was fun. I really enjoyed it, but I didn't play receiver in high school, and I didn't have any experience coaching that position. And what I want to get to in this video is that you may be asked to do things that you're not comfortable with. You may be asked to coach a position group that's not your favorite. That's maybe not what you look forward into getting into coaching, because ultimately when I got there was already an offensive line coach. And when the guy that left and the guy that had already been in there a year, he got that first nod to be the offensive line coach. And so I had to wait a year. And then we had a head coaching change, and then that guy moved up to head coach, and then it just, you kept building off of that. And eventually I got to do offensive line, and I still do to this day. I've been coaching offensive line now for 5 years. And so that's how it's kind of gone at this point. But you may be asked to do things that, just aren't comfortable to you. Like coaching receivers, to me, just like it had its perks. And the one thing that I really had to learn was I had to learn the route concepts. We had to know that. I had to know that for practice. If we were going to go out there and run, if we were installing the play hitch, just a 5-yard hitch, I needed to make sure that I worked that route in. And then if we're going to be working like a deep post, I needed to make sure we're hitting the deep post. We needed to work on blocking. That's something that receivers coaches forget to do. Those guys got to block. Especially if you're a run first team, those guys got to block. It doesn't matter how many catching drills you put in there. If they don't know how to block, they're not going to help. And so you have to think about your position group as a whole picture. And so a lot of young coaches get the receiver coach job. And that's just the way it is. Or they get running backs. And my head coach that I had great resources on receivers. And he gave me everything he had. And he gave me, books. I had 2 separate books on receivers. I had like 6 DVDs, and I watched everything that he gave me. And I really felt like, and I went and studied all that and tried to, be the best receivers coach that I could be. And I felt like that year, we did fantastic. We had guys that could catch the ball, and we had some stellar athletes out there. It was a lot of fun to coach them. But eventually, I got to a point in the next spring where I really just didn't enjoy it as much. And it started to kind of get old, and I just didn't like it. I didn't have the same passion for it. Now, the passion I did have on the defensive side of the ball was the defensive line. And there was a few times before I officially took over where I got to kind of practice, and the head coach got to see me work with the D-line. And I think he kind of liked the idea of me working with the D-line as well. Because, I played defensive line in college. So I'd had a little experience playing those positions. And that's, it's great if you've played a position, and especially if you played at a high level, or, you played at the high school level. That's all great. But you've got to be able to coach that position. Looking back now, I understand defensive line play, and it's probably the one thing that I really enjoy and something that really just makes sense to me. It doesn't make sense to anybody else on the staff. And that's just, you've got to sell out and find your niche. You've got to find what you really enjoy. I love coaching offensive line. And I think I would say this, offensive line is fun, but if I could coach defensive line, just exclusively, that would be awesome. But I'm in a position now where I'm also the defensive coordinator, so I really don't coach a defensive position. But that's I figured out that from that day forward, defensive line was where I wanted to focus. And it eventually, having that knowledge eventually led me to a coordinator position like I'm in now. And I've been a defensive coordinator for the last 3 years. So I went from coaching defensive line for 2 years to being the full-time defensive coordinator where I'm currently at. And it's, I found something that I really enjoyed. Now, if I would have sold out on, offensive line and basically just focused on that, maybe it would have changed. But it was meant to be the way that, and I just understand defense. And something about defensive line play and understanding all of that stuff really developed my football IQ and understanding how the defensive line fit into the defensive game. And so that helped me as an assistant coach. And I really think you've got to find that thing that you really enjoy and just sell out on it. And because ultimately it's really hard as a coach, you're going to find out it's really hard to put enough effort into every single little detail that you have. You've got to get the big things done first. But if you have just an unwilling passion for something, go all in for it. That's what you should do. And I would say that, out of all the things that I have and have learned about, defensive line play is just one of those things that just really makes sense to me. And it really is, and it's sometimes it's hard to convey those ideas to others because, I've coached defensive line, and I've always had to train up the next defensive line coach to get them to play the way that I want in the defense. And sometimes that way is really hard to convey to others. And so you have to also be able to learn to teach not only your players, but to teach the other people that are involved, the other coaches. You need to be able to have drills ready. And speaking of drills, we are going to start working on some drills, some drill tapes for you guys to, get into and to really start to see what all of this consists of, because you need to have drills set up. You need to have things ready to go because the world of football is adapting, and you need to be able to adapt fast. And you need to have a plan when you get in there about what you're going to do with your position group. So I've got more topics on this kind of stuff. This video is just kind of scratching the surface as far as where we're going with this. I just wanted to say thank you guys so much for watching this video. Be sure to check out my Instagram, for updates on the channel and stuff like that. We also have a private Discord. We don't have anything about coaching in our Discord yet, but maybe that's something we need to look at adding. So I just wanted to make sure you guys have subscribed, hit the notification button so you can get notified when new videos are published. We're posting every Tuesday and Thursday. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we will see you next time.